I try to give women hope. You know, I tell them my story, and I tell them the depths to, that I went to during addiction. And if I can do it, you can do it. And I'll walk you through it. But I'm pretty tough on them. I've seen too many people die from this disease.
How many women have came through your program since you launched it, the McCoy House?
I think we put on like 600, and I was just talking about that. And when we were redoing our office and going through all the files, and we wrote down 600, but I think that was 600 calls that we had and people that we spoke to. So not all 600 went through McCoy, but definitely between 300 and 400 have gone through. My family used to say, "Do you still go to those 12-step meetings?" Yeah, that's why I'm sober, because I still go. 32 years and I still go, maybe 4 a week, because these are my people. They understand me.
Welcome back to MasterMined. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner, and as always, joined by Lee Pepper. Great to have you, Lee.
Good morning, Mark. Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm excited about this episode, Lee. I know this guest is somebody you personally brought in, so really excited about this episode. Jeff, Skillen, great to have you too, man.
You know, Mark, it's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
Good morning.
I feel like the three of us are back together again. We spent a lot of time at the NATAP National doing a lot of podcasts, just Jeff and I. We missed you, Lee, so it's great to have the three of us back together. It's also great to have Denise Marsters with the McCoy House. Denise is the founder of the McCoy House, and it's an extended care house for women in Mississippi. So, Denise, great to have you on the show. Really appreciate you being a part of the MasterMined community.
Thank you for having me. This is what an honor it is, just to be here and tell you guys more about what we do in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah, well, we're excited to hear. Maybe we could just kick it off by just talking a little bit about the McCoy House and kind of what was your inspiration for getting it started.
Okay. Well, my first inspiration was I'm in recovery myself. I've been in recovery for 32 years, picked up a 32 recovery chip. But I struggled with addiction for a long time before I finally got sober. I was in treatment 4 times, and I was in and out of 12-step programs for 7 years. And the final straw was when I was at my house, and I had my 7-year-old in her bedroom, and I had a gun to my head. And that's when I thought something had to change. My life had become so dark that the only way I thought out of it was to take myself out. And for some reason, and I know it's God because I'm very unapologetic about my faith, I know that God said I have a plan for you. You don't know what it is, but we're doing it. So I finally got myself in treatment, or my sisters actually came over from Ireland, my 2 sisters, and they got me in treatment. And I haven't looked back since. I've looked forward. I've had to deal with a lot of things that I had anesthetized through alcohol. And that's why I want to do this. I want women to not have to go through what I went through. And, if I had left my child, for her to get up in the morning and to see a scene like that in our house, what a legacy that would be for her, how much trauma that would be. And she had been through enough trauma, growing 7 years old with a mom who was still drinking. So the McCoy House was, I don't know that it was inspired at that time. I doubt it. But I think the journey was already in place. I think it was Ram Dass said we're all just walking each other home. And that's what we're doing. And if I can be a compassionate witness to somebody's journey, we talked about the hero's journey last night when we met. And the hero's journey, we're all on a hero's journey. Some answer the call, some don't, some refuse the call, some go through the belly of the whale, the dark night of the soul, and what happens when we come out the other side? We have a purpose. So I felt that, my purpose along the way, had no idea how it was going to turn out, but I know that my journey is so fulfilling. And I look back and I think every single thing happened in my life to get me here. The good things, the bad things, the struggles, the challenges. And it made me believe that I'm stronger than I thought I was. So, that's kind of like that's the nutshell of how we got started.
Well, and Mark, I met Denise in Austin at the Lone Star Collective. So John West and I had just come off stage for our presentation, and Denise, I think you were either sitting at my table or came up to my table, and just in the few minutes of us kind of introducing ourselves, we had so many common friends. Like we were even talking last night, John Southworth and Brian O'Shea. And then just to hear the story of the McCoy House, I knew, I said, this is be a great topic for our program, because they've gone from this traditional, okay, I want to provide, housing and support, for people coming out of treatment, and then kind of moving from just the traditional sober living into extended care. I said, no, this is going to be important, because I think a lot of people in our industry wonder, why are there so many kind of like mom and pop places around the country?
Right.
And so Denise is a great person to kind of give us a little history on how somebody can actually start in the treatment business, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went to treatment I left treatment 94. And 2 years after I got sober, I went back to train to be a therapist. So I'm a substance use disorder therapist. I'm trained in equine therapy. I'm trained in ropes. I'm trained in sex addiction. I'm a CSAT. And I struggled with a lot of stuff throughout the years. When I first went to treatment, what was just, I think the conversation was just alcohol. You just get sober, you don't drink, and that's it. We didn't know anything about sex addiction. We didn't know anything about disordered eating, or at least I didn't. I'm sure there were treatment centers in America at that time that treated those places, but I didn't identify with any of those. And 6 years after I got sober, my husband passed away. He was a Vietnam vet, like we talked. And so when I got out of treatment, I went home to a very dysfunctional, unhealthy environment. My husband he had PTSD, severe PTSD from Vietnam. And he had cancer at the same time. And he died 6 years after I got sober. And so I switched jobs. I said, I want to work with men. And I went out to work at Copac, and was on the men's unit. And I was so happy with myself because I have 4 brothers, and I got along great with guys. I didn't get along great with women. And so I worked on the men's unit, and at lunchtime they called me in, and they said, we're transferring you to the women's unit. And I thought, oh no, I am not working with women. And that was the biggest blessing ever, because every woman I met was a mirror of the things that I was struggling with that I didn't understand. And I saw my whole life in front of me. I was a spender. I had credit card bills like you wouldn't believe it. And I was sober from alcohol 6 years. My husband had passed away, and I was panicking about relationships. I was an overexerciser. I had I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. I was an all or nothing. If you ask my mom, what do you remember about Denise? She'd say she was always on a diet. I thought every woman was always, I didn't realize that was an issue. And when I went to Copac and worked on that women's unit, those women were the best gifts. Hard. So I went to my boss at the time and I said, I can't work here. And he said, why? And I said, because I think I'm sicker than the clients. I said, I cannot work here. And he said, what do you mean? Have you been drinking? And I said, no, I haven't. I said, but I realized I have all these other behaviors that are keeping me stuck. And what I was doing was really using them to numb out instead of alcohol. I couldn't use alcohol or drugs anymore. But now I was using these other behaviors. We mentioned last night I ran 6 marathons in 6 years. Thought I was doing a great thing. But it was all escape. And I was escaping from, trauma. I think most addicts and alcoholics have got a history of some kind of trauma. I don't suggest that we compare our traumas, because whatever is traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you, but it's how I take it. So he gave me the opportunity of working on my stuff.
And did you go to like an on-site, or how did you?
Yeah, I went to on-site,
Okay.
not at that time, but I worked with a therapist, and I was open to looking at it. I mean, most people are scared, and I thought, I need to look at this.
And I guess now, because you've done this work, you can challenge the women that you're
Right.
supporting every day now.
Yeah, and that's because we don't know what they struggle with. You know, they come to us, and that's the difference between sober living and extended care. You know, when a lot of people, when they go in, and there's a place for all of these places in society. And when I opened McCoy, I wanted a place for somebody like me. I couldn't afford the $10,000 a month in Malibu, California, or, you know, wherever. And I didn't want to go to a place that was funded by the government, you know, because I wasn't in that wasn't my social economic. I was like a middle class, and I wanted some place where I could heal. You know, the finances were a big thing. I couldn't go to, you know, these real exclusive spa places, which are wonderful if you can afford them. But I couldn't afford to go to a place like that. And I went home and I white-knuckled it. All I did was not drink. But I didn't do anything else. I worked, I cleaned house, but until I went to Copac and realized what I was doing, I didn't get the help that I needed. And then I did. I went to see a therapist. I did it all outpatient. Went to see a therapist and worked on all these things. And it's like whack-a-mole. You know, you address one thing, and then another thing pops up. Because my addiction is not going to say, well, wonderful, Denise, you know, you quit drinking, now we're better. It's going to do a Google search. We talked about Google last night. It's going to do a Google search, and it's going to say, how can I mimic something that how she can, some behavior that she can escape with. And that was like, wow. So you peel back one layer of the onion, and there's another. So I have to be very mindful on my journey. You know, am I over-exercising? Am I using food to? We were talking about Asheville last night, and I will die an alcoholic, but I don't have to die from alcoholism. I have the disease of addiction. And the main purpose of a disease is to kill its host. Look at cancer, look at diabetes, look at any disease that we get. It's to eliminate you, right? So my disease of alcoholism is not going to put a bottle of vodka in front of me, because I'm going to say, But what it's going to do is put something in front of me that I can't deal with. Like Asheville, when we had in 2000, when was it? Like 2 years?
2 years ago, the floods.
Wow, that was devastating. And I live like a mile from Biltmore Village. Thank God I was up on the hill. And when I walked down and saw, after the water receded, kids' shoes on trees, kids' clothes hanging off of trees when the water had receded. I mean, people's, just the smell of death and the smell of desperation. I felt despair. I wanted a cigarette and I wanted a drink. But I showed up at an AA meeting and I said, I am terrified. And you know, that's our program. Our program teaches us how to not go to that first go-to. Because my go-to was, you know, let's have a drink, it'll numb it. But nothing's going to change. Nothing has changed. So, it's such a blessing for me to be able to share with other women, well, and with anybody. I mean, I've worked with men and related to sex addiction for years and years, and to understand why people do what they do. You know, there's always a reason.
Support for MasterMined comes from our sponsor, Snapshot Health. In the world of behavioral health, growth must be balanced with ethics and mission. Snapshot Health specializes in performance-driven marketing designed to help behavioral and addiction treatment centers. To learn how to build scalable systems for sustainable growth, visit the link in our show notes.
Denise, I want to just kind of address the shamrock in the room here.
The shamrock.
The shamrock in the room. I mean, your accent is beautiful, and I have a soft spot for Ireland, right? So it's like I would love to just go backwards just a little bit. And I mean, listen, McCoy is in the name. I mean, it's like help us understand your journey from Ireland to Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh my gosh.
And then, yeah, I mean, I want to hear a little bit more.
Was
of that.
there a boat involved, or did you fly, or?
We'll get there. I went around the world.
I mean, anyone listening to this has got to be thinking this themselves is like, okay,
Yeah, especially the people that are not watching, they're listening to it. They're going to say, okay, Jackson, Mississippi, that's
Right.
an interesting accent.
Right.
Yeah. A little bit of Southern. And then when I go home, they say, oh, you sound like a Southern.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. But, okay, I was born in a tiny little village. Actually, while I was sitting outside, I looked up the population. 181 people.
There we
So
go.
it's gone up.
Yeah. I have 8 siblings. Was born into an Irish Catholic family. There was no alcohol in our house. My dad didn't drink. My mom didn't drink. There might have been a bottle of wine at Christmas, but there was no alcoholism.
I mean, your family was 10% of the population.
Yeah, right. And because people are amazed when they say, "Oh, yeah, she's an alcoholic. She's out." Everybody in Ireland drinks. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of them do, and all the socializing is around the pub. People go to the pub at night time. It's not that they go there to get drunk; they go there to talk. Because we love to talk, Irish people. We love to talk, and we're
You don't say.
storytellers.
You don't say.
And we owned a local grocery. Well, we owned a local store. It was called Whitegate Stores, and my dad ran it every now and again, and then he'd take off and do something. He was a builder as well, but my dad was my hero. My dad died the year I got sober. Thank God he saw me sober. He was my hero. He was a visionary. Rules were for everybody else but for my dad. He used to steal Christmas trees from the forest, and nobody would say anything because he had such a great personality. He was a wonderful singer. He was a whistler. You could hear him whistling in the village. Everybody knew my dad. My dad was the kindest person, and the funniest. He was tough on me, though. He was tough on me because I realized later, I think he knew I was just like him. He took risks that you wouldn't believe. I have taken risks that I even find it hard to believe now that I'm even still alive. But I'm the second eldest of 9. And when I was 25, when I first started drinking, I knew it did something to me. I knew that let me back up with my family. Even though we didn't have alcoholism or addiction in my family, my dad's side of the family dealt with a lot of mental health challenges. His 3 sisters were in and out of mental hospitals all their lives. And my dad ended up there at one time. But that was all secretive. You don't tell people about anything like that. So what I learned as a kid was you have to be happy. You have to have a smile on your face. You have to have a good sense of humor. And I was the fun one of the family. I was the one who could tell the stories at the dinner table to keep the focus off of my dad's sister who lived with us all of our lives, she had a severe psychiatric illness. So I was the storyteller. And a lot of us have dealt with depression in my generation. Some of my sisters and some of my brothers, and we just deal with it, and you do the right thing and you do what you need to do. So I was always worried about ending up in a mental hospital. As a kid, that was my big
Did you think it's like in your DNA?
I did, yeah. I did. And I knew that, and I felt things that I wanted to be sad about, but I knew it wasn't okay to be sad about them because you're going to be taken to the mental hospital. That was the story I had in my head. And I never ended up in a mental hospital, thank God, but I did end up in treatment. But I think what I did with alcohol, I medicated my depression with alcohol. And when that clicked, fused for me, depression, alcohol, no depression, that was the start of my addiction. So I knew I had a problem. And I was working as a secretary and went back to college to do psychology. And one of the things I had to do in psychology, it was industrial psychology. I worked at a place, I worked at Shannon Airport in the industrial part of Shannon, and my boss sent me to do this psychology course. And I was in human resources at the time, and my job was interviewing people. So when we did the psychology, we had to go on so many interviews and do write a paper on it. Well, I went on 3 interviews, and the last one I went on was a job that I applied off the paper for Saudi Arabia as a human resources assistant. Well, I got the bus to Dublin, went to the interview. They called me and they asked me back for a second interview. I didn't even know where Saudi Arabia was. So I had to look that up on the map. And I was not a good student. I was the one that was catching frogs and catching rabbits and out at nighttime till it was time to come home for dinner. You know, I was not the studious type. My 2 sisters were. And I always felt different. I always felt stupid. But I'm a right-brain person. You know, I'm a visionary. I'm like, I will take risks. I will, you know, if I'm on a diving board, I'll dive off and say, by the way, is there water in that pool? You know, I'm halfway down before I think, oh, did I really make the right decision? So I applied for the job in Saudi Arabia. They called me back for the first interview. They called me for the second interview. Hadn't told my folks at all. Called me for the third interview and offered me the job. I said, I'm going. So I left and went to Saudi. So people ask me, how did I get to the United States? A man, what else? I met my husband in Saudi Arabia. His name was Richard Marsters. He was the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer at a hospital in Dhahran where I worked in human resources. And we met in 81. We got married in 82. We moved back to the States in 84. And we had our daughter Michelle in 86.
And moved back to Jackson?
No, he was from California. He was from Long Beach. I'd never been to the States before, ever, until 82. All I knew was chips. Chips. Oh my God! The 5-lane highway, the motorcycle cops. And you spoke about motorcycle cops. I rode a Harley for years.
Wow.
Oh yeah. But
Shout out to Eric Estrada.
I know he's doing a
out there.
whole great thing now with signing, autographing helmets. And
really?
He's got a whole
Oh,
side
my
deal
gosh.
going now.
I
We gotta
was
get you an autograph.
obsessed. I was obsessed with chips.
All right, hashtag Ponch and John.
Yeah.
And 5-lane highways. I had never seen a 5-lane highway in my life.
Paige is going to have to drop
She's
in
Googling.
the
Paige is
music.
Googling.
Yeah,
chips
Paige is
right
going,
now.
what is that? Yeah, exactly. We
Oh
gotta
my
do
gosh.
that.
Yeah. So when we relocated, they relocated my husband to a hospital in Dallas. So we moved from Saudi to Dallas. And then we moved from Dallas, all with his work, from Dallas to Shreveport, and then Shreveport to Jackson. And he worked at the Methodist Rehabilitation as the CFO until he got cancer and died in 2000. So that's how I ended up in the States.
Well, I appreciate you walking us through that journey. But you didn't touch on the McCoy part. So it's
McCoy,
like,
so McCoy is a whole different story. When Richard
See, I'm setting you up for your storytelling.
I know you are.
to
I'm
me,
a
that just-
storyteller.
I'm giving you the.
Jeff's
like,
going to pull a book out of you after this podcast.
I know. It's like
So-
I'm giving you the hanging curveball, and you just
Yeah.
knock it over the fence.
Yeah.
you know?
When Richard died, his death was very traumatic. He had a tumor in the inside of his neck, and he struggled with that for 2.5 years. He went blind. He lost part of his tongue. The tumor erupted in our bed on Easter of 2000, Good Friday night, and he aspirated in his own blood. And I was in the house myself with him. I had arranged for my daughter to go someplace else, just for that weekend, because they said he probably won't make it through the weekend, and he didn't want to. We already had hospice for him, and so that was pretty traumatic. So after Richard passed away, I was heartbroken. You know, we had a tumultuous relationship. Me with my alcoholism, and he with his PTSD. But he was an amazing father, an amazing provider. And then I knew nothing about Vietnam. I knew a lot about Northern Ireland, but nothing about Vietnam and what they went through. And he never talked about it. He never talked about it. And so that I had a lot of guilt about not finding out more. And, you know, being a therapist, I couldn't even take care of my own people. So 4 years after Richard passed away, I was introduced to Neil McCoy, not the singer. And he was in recovery. I didn't meet him in recovery, but he owned a gas station. He was 6'4" or 5". He was a redneck. That's what people called him. He was rough and ready. He toted a gun on his hip, and he made me laugh. And he rode a Harley. And we dated for 4 years, and then he was diagnosed with leukemia. And right before he passed away, this was, when was it? November 2007. He was supposed to come to Ireland with me for my niece's wedding, and he was in the hospital. And so I came back from the wedding, and they told him that it was pretty severe. I mean, within the 2 weeks that I was gone, he had lost a lot of weight. So I said, let's go look at a place. Now, I worked at COPAC for a while, and then I worked at a Bridge to Recovery, which is an outpatient program. And I noticed that a lot of the women, a lot of the patients in the outpatient program were going home to maybe husbands who drank, or going home to abusive situations or unhealthy families. And I thought, how can they get well? If they're going to an IOP, spending all this money on treatment, and then they're going back to being abused or sitting with somebody who's using, or, you know, people not understanding what their journey is about. I mean, my family used to say, do you still go to those 12-step meetings? Yeah, that's why I'm sober, because I still go. 32 years and I still go, maybe 4 a week, because these are my people. They understand me. So I had the idea in my head that wouldn't it be great to have a place for women to go once they get out of inpatient treatment. And the women the patients that I was working with at a Bridge to Recovery, some of them, you know, were relapsing, and they weren't going home to an environment that was conducive to recovery and supportive. So I said, Neil, come on, we're going to look at a house. So Neil got in the car with me, and we drove up to the house, and it was what is now the McCoy House. And he looked at it, and we walked through the doors, and he said, if you touch those floors, I'll kill you. I thought, that must be a Southern man's way of saying he likes it.
Yeah.
They were fabulous hardwood floors. The house was built in the 50s. It's a Southern plantation home with the big porch, the big white pillars. But it was bat infested, rat infested, and mold infested. And he looked at it and he said, this will give me a reason to live. So we're driving out, and he said, are you serious about this? I said, I really don't know. I said, I just wanted to look at it. Actually, I just wanted to get him out of, you know, he was really struggling with depression. And I just wanted to get him out of the house and just take him on a little tour. Little did I know how that was being set up. So we're driving out, and he said, would you like a silent partner? I'd never heard of a silent partner. I had no idea what that meant. But I knew Neil McCoy, and he never shut his mouth. So I knew he couldn't be silent. So I said, we'll talk about that later. Had no clue. And 2 months later, we're in the hospital, and he's dying. We had never talked about it after that. I stayed in the hospital with him until we brought him home at nighttime. I made my little bed beside his bed. He showed me how to love again. He showed me how to laugh again. We rode motorcycles all over the place. We went to Arizona. We went to several places on motorcycles. And he loved country music. And we used to dance around his kitchen. Wow. He brings, I'm very grateful for the people in my life, you know, that showed me these little these little, I guess, that gave me joy. You know, my dad was my hero. He died the year I got sober. Then Richard gave me the most beautiful daughter and gave me a lifestyle and brought me to the States. And then Neil. You know, people say, well, you've had a lot of death and trauma and loss, but we all do. But what do we do with it? You know, do we moan and groan about how bad it is? Because that's part of life. Yeah. Or do we just embrace it and just be grateful for the gifts they brought to us? So Neil reached out on Thursday night, and he said, I think you need to go ahead with the house. And I thought, what house? He said, you know, the sober house. And I said, if I do, I'm going to call it the McCoy House. And he squeezed my hand, and he closed his eyes, and a tear ran down his face. And he died 4 days later. That was Thursday. He died Sunday. We brought him home Friday. I was holding his hand when he died. And I said, oh, my God, I made a promise to a dying man. Now what am I going to do? And, you know, my integrity, I had no integrity when I was using. When I was drinking, I would lie, cheat, and steal. I mean, I was a criminal. And so integrity was very important to me when I got sober. So I thought, I got to do what I need to do. So I took all of my, and a lot of people think that Neil left money for it, but he didn't. I took out all my husband's life insurance, all of our 401k, and started up the house. And then my friend Costas, who is at a bridge to recovery, I went to her one day and I said, have I lost my mind? I had no money left. $40,000 in credit card bills that I couldn't pay. And I said, Costas, I think I'm having a nervous breakdown. I said, I think I made a huge mistake. And she said, Denise, and she says this, Denise, I know your heart. She said, God does not pick the equipped. He equips the picked. I was like, bring it on. Because I thought I had to have a master's degree in business or knew about nonprofits and knew about all of this stuff. No, I didn't. And the miracles that have happened. So in 2008, we had our first client at McCoy. And it's just grown since then. And people have just, our community is amazing. The people who have helped us, you know, the people who have donated to us, the people who have met it, they believe in what we do. And, you know, it's divinely inspired. My brother, who is a builder, he works in construction, and he's a detail carpenter in New York. He's retired now. My parents sent him down. The family sent him down when I got the McCoy House. And he's very professional in what he does. He used to work on the Wall Street buildings and all this, like detailed. And I heard this years afterwards. He called my mom and he said, I think she's drinking. Nobody would buy a house like this. He said, this house is just a mess. It's a money pit. But now our women get well there. And I think that the metaphor for the house was, you know, bat-infested, rat-infested, mold-infested. We were all broken when we got into recovery, and now we're healed. And it's just a whole metaphor. I remember looking at snowdrops were coming up in the yard, and there was a little cat that came up to the door, and I sat there, and I had the key because I had signed the papers. I said, I own this house. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? And it just all worked out.
So the mission began.
The mission began.
And so thanks so much for taking us through your journey. Like this, I could just listen to you talk for all day. It's amazing, the storytelling that you've done, and I appreciate you taking us through your journey. And I guess, you know, just as we look back, you know, 30 years in recovery and, you know, all the resilience that you've had to have through the years to get you to where you're at today. And I guess what of those lessons do you take forward to teach other women now? Because it seems like God's put you in exactly the place you've needed to be all along the way.
Yeah. I try to give women hope. You know, I tell them my story, and I tell them the depths to that I went to during addiction. And if I can do it, you can do it. And I'll walk you through it. But I'm pretty tough on them. I've seen too many people die from this disease. Like, I've been a therapist for about 30 years now. And we have to change our behaviors. We have to address our behaviors. We have to be open and honest about what we want from life. And if we're open and honest and we're doing the right thing, then things happen. People, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my purpose is. And I think your purpose is doing the right thing today. And every day you do the right thing, your purpose just evolves. I had no idea. If somebody told me that I was going to open a sober living house or an extended care program, and I'd be sober, and I'd be able to pay my own mortgage and own my own car, I would have said I wouldn't have believed it. And I don't have a whole lot of education. I don't have a master's degree. I was almost a high school dropout. I went back and I got my certifications, but I was honest about what my heart said. I get on my knees every morning, and I ask God to direct my thoughts, my feelings, my words, and my actions. And then I go about my day. Like before I come in here, I said I prayed before I came in here, because I do believe that without God I'm nothing. And I remember, one of my therapists saying, she talked about ego and humility. And she said, humility is knowing that I am nothing without God. And to me, that was like, wow, okay. It's not about groveling, it's just knowing who's in charge. And for me, I know who's in charge. And I work with a lot of people who are non-believers. And it scares me. It really scares me, because I don't know what I would do without my belief system. And I'm not judging them for not believing, but I just don't know what I would do if I didn't have a higher power, which I choose to call God.
Yeah, I've heard this many times that you are you're best suited to help the people that you used to be.
Oh, and, wow, I like that. Can I use that?
You can, we call it R&D. It's rip off and duplicate.
So
you're welcome. You're welcome to it. But I guess, as we say that, how many women have came through your program since you launched it, the McCoy House?
I think we put on 600, and I was just talking about that. And when we were redoing our office and going through all the files, and we wrote down 600, but I think that was 600 calls that we had and people that we spoke to. So not all 600 went through McCoy, but definitely between 300 and 400 have gone through. And a lot of them are, we have alumni, we have women that sponsor the women at the house now. There are so many amazing stories. So many amazing stories. Like women who have gone back to be, there's one now, I think she might be coming on our board. She went back to school to be an attorney. We have women that are married and have kids now. Women that have gone back to do their education, because they were lost. And there's a good friend of mine that he's an Irish author and songwriter. And his name has just gone out of my head right now. But he wrote a book called Phil Coulter. Have you heard of Phil Coulter? Mm-hmm. Oh, Phil Coulter is a friend of mine.
Oh, nice.
He came and did a concert for us, a fundraising concert at the McCoy House. And he wrote a book. And the book, I think the title of it is Bruised, Not Broken. We're all bruised, but we're not broken. And once the women can find what gives them joy. Like we had a woman not too long ago, she was a co-pack. I knew her when she was 21 years old. And she had a lot of struggles on the journey. And she came to us about 4 or 5 years ago. And she was the most amazing artist. When I saw her artwork, she said, Denise, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I said, I can't even draw a stick figure. And you're this amazing artist. And now she has a Facebook page, she has an Instagram page, and she's selling her art. And it is phenomenal. We get people who write songs, we get people who sing, we get people who play the piano, and they've never had the opportunity to look at what makes them happy. What makes them happy? You know, when I look back at when I was a kid growing up in Ireland, being around people made me happy. Like, I was always at the neighbors' houses helping them. So, you know, what did you want to do when you were a kid? I always felt helping people was kind of but I didn't know what that meant.
So Denise, as people who are listening to this, you know, you mentioned COPAC a few times. I think we need to recognize COPAC has an important history in our industry, but that is now known as Defining Wellness.
Defining Wellness,
exactly.
Yes.
And so we know Defining Wellness well, and we. I'm curious, as you talk about this inspired journey that you're in terms of developing McCoy House. You started off sober living, but that's not what you are now.
Right.
So walk us through, if you don't mind, kind of that evolution, and then what services you're offering now, and then why sober living is really not. A lot of people think that's kind of where it starts and stops.
Right.
But it's not. So maybe explain where that is for you.
So there are different levels of care after treatment. We started off as sober living, but we offered more than a regular, like an Oxford house. You know, there are Oxford houses. There are different places now that people have opened their own sober livings, and because there's a need for it. There's a need for people not to go home. The women that come to us, we offer them structure, we offer them accountability, we offer them programming. We're very, I won't say particular, we're very intentional about the women we take. We only have 9 beds. So we want women who come to us who can follow rules, are willing to follow rules. Because a lot of people, when they get out of treatment, 2 of the first things that they get engaged in is a relationship, and somebody who's just out of treatment. Getting into a relationship is a quick fix, but it's not a fix. And you find that when they get into relationships, that's one of the things that takes them back into drugs or alcohol. Not all the time. So a lot of sober living houses do not address the underlying issues. We have a lot of people that come to us with co-occurring diseases, eating disorder. They have to have primary substance use disorder. They can have mental health issues if they're properly medicated. Disordered eating. Most of our women come to us. Most women have got body image problems because of society and how we're taught we're supposed to look to be loved, and a lot of men have this too. You know, I've worked with men for years. So we address those issues. We're on 7.5 acres. We're a gated community, so we're not just a house. We have 9 beds. There's 2 rooms. There's 2 beds to a room, so they're not crowded in. There's not 10 people in a room or 6 people in a room. I'm very intentional about what we provide for our women. Growing up in a house with 11 people and 1 bathroom, I love white towels, nice comfortable sheets, comforters, pillow top mattresses. I want women to know that we care about them and that we embrace them as women, and that we treat them with respect. And
for some of these
dignity.
women, this is the first time they've had this in many years.
It can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. And when they feel loved and they feel respected, then that kind of entices them, okay, I'm going to do more. They do their own cleaning. We had a big golf tournament in May, and we brought a lot of out-of-town people in, you know, treatment centers that were coming in that played in teams. So next year we're having a golf tournament. Bring your teams. And it's treatment center against treatment center, which was fun. But I'm off track right now. Okay, I'm getting back on track. I tend to do that. So we're on 7.5 acres. It's gated. You have to have a code to get in the gate, so we're very safe. We have a labyrinth. We built our own labyrinth. It's 80 feet in diameter, and it's 11 circuits. And there's a beautiful Celtic cross in the middle. We have a walking path which is a 1/4 mile around the property. We encourage women to exercise. We focus on a holistic approach to recovery, body, mind, and spirit. If not using is just not, it's not, that doesn't do it. You can have a dry drunk, someone who is not drinking and using, and no behaviors have changed. So we look at the behaviors. What are we eating? Are we exercising? Are we taking care of our bedrooms? Are we taking care of our bodies? Are we with self-care? Are we on our phones all the time? We allow them to have their phones and their computers unless we see that there's an issue. We don't take everything away when they first come into us. Now, if a therapist says, no, Denise, she doesn't need her phone because she's been on, date.com or whatever, then we don't let them have the phones. But it's a very, very structured environment. We have daily meditations every day. The staff we have Jordan, who is our executive director, Elizabeth, who is a clinical support specialist, and Jordan, Madison, who's a clinical support specialist. Then we have a facilities manager. We bought the house right outside of our property, and he lives there. He's like a security guard. He does all of our maintenance. He does all of our lawns. We have two beautiful ponds with fountains. We take them to equine therapy. We do yoga, and we have an art studio. So all of this is it's more than sober living, because we want them to try out what they like. And experiential therapy, to me, is magic. Because when they're doing experiential therapy, especially with the horses, you can't deny what happens with the horses. And we have a ropes course on. I'm trained in ropes, so we do ropes with them as well. We've taken them to sweat lodge ceremonies and ice baths.
And I was going to say, Denise, I feel like when you were talking to Jeff and I, last night, that this extended care, this is what treatment centers are looking for, to extend the care that they've gotten in the first 30 to 90 days. And that's where I think in our current insurance-driven model, we just think, 30 days and they're done. It's like, no, there has to be this extension. And most treatment centers don't provide this type of, they can't afford to do it in the insurance model.
Right.
So you provide a really important service to the community. I think that's why you all have been successful, because you've got long-standing relationships with some of the top programs in the country. Like we talked about the Guest House in Pine Grove and A Bridge to Recovery. And they're looking for people like you where they can feel like it is an extension of the service that they provided in the beginning.
Yeah. And then we opened a thrift store. We opened a thrift store.
I was going to bring that up.
A thrift store and a boutique. And we've moved 4 times to bigger spaces. It was my idea. And we had, when we had our board back in, I don't know, maybe 11, 12 years now, we opened it. 3 of the board resigned. They thought, this woman is going to get us in prison. She has too many things on her head. But opening a thrift store was like, they need a place to work.
Yeah.
They need a place to interact with the community. And it's absolutely amazing. It's an 8,000 square foot in a strip mall. It's about 2 miles from the house. The women volunteer there. They have to do 2 shifts a week. And then I think about 5 of our alumni work there.
And they do the pricing, and
they do the pricing,
shift,
they do the sorting,
yeah.
The sorting, and we're very involved with our community. We work with the fire department. If the fire chief, Chief Saunders, calls me and he'll say, Denise, we just had a house that got burned down. They've lost everything. Can you help them? We help those families. We work with the police department. We work with CARA, the Animal Rescue League. We work with the school that it's an art school. We give them any art supplies that we get. So our women know that we give back. You can't hold the hose. You have to give and receive, and when you give, you receive. And it's just the whole circle. We have amazing, like everything I'm wearing today is from our thrift store.
Wow.
The stuff that we get, it's like a consignment store. The things that we would not wear ourselves, we give to either Goodwill or to another nonprofit in our town. We help Shower Power, which they have portable showers for the homeless. We give them towels, we give them underwear, we give them shoes, we give them whatever they want. Yeah.
Amazing.
And I'm sure you're teaching a lot of these ladies like entrepreneurship too in the thrift
Right.
store of
Yeah.
you can go start your own thing after.
And it builds their self-esteem.
Right.
You know, a lot of them just feel like nobody would hire me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we hire you.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and we're
that's-
partners with a lot of places in Jackson. Like there's a coffee place that hires a lot of our women. And yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that most people who offer this level of care. I mean, to Lee's point, I mean, we all know, and the studies have shown that the longer someone can be in this environment, the more successful their recovery path is going to be.
Totally.
But one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people have is this employment, or what do I do with this time? How do I make meaningful, contributions to society, that type of thing. And the fact that you've addressed that through the thrift store, and then the network of employers that you have and things like that, it's like that's really what makes this thrive.
Right, right. And we engage with other nonprofits. Like we go on 5K runs. We'll have like the McCoy House team. We've won a few times, and I'm a runner, so I'm big into that. And whatever they can do to get them out of themselves, and to build their self-worth and their self-esteem. I mean, that's all just part of the magic of it. It's miraculous to see a woman come in, and then to see when she leaves with that light in her eye and that shine, that smile in her heart. It's priceless.
Is there a path to copying the playbook you all have at McCoy House and taking it into other states and other cities?
We were asked that, and I think we're the only one that offer what we offer, at least in Mississippi. We had a strategic planning meeting, like the first or second year when we started. Well, maybe the fourth year, and we had this guy come in from this big company. He was absolutely amazing, and they asked the same question, and I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea," and he said, "No." He said, "You need to be." He ran up to his office and he brought me down this book and he said, "You need to be a small giant." He said, "Before you start branching out, you need to make sure that you are 100% invested in what you're doing, and you make the McCoy House the best that it can be, and stop all this branching out, because when people branch out like that, they lose their purpose, or they lose their mission, or they lose whatever." I'd love to see it done, but I'm too old to start it.
Yeah.
Are there associations like NATAB, for treatments? Are there associations for extended care and sober living? Professional organizations that
There is one. It is called the National Recovery Association. Mississippi does not have a chapter, and we're working with Alabama and Susan Binns. Did you know Susan Binns? Did anybody know? She was very well known here in Nashville. I think she's still around, but she opened YANA, You Are Not Alone, and it was for women in recovery. And she helped me so much when I started up McCoy House. She is like a legend in this field. But we are trying to get certified with, it's called NAR, the National Recovery Housing Association, or something like that. But they don't have a chapter in Mississippi, and we're really working with Alabama to see if we can go in together, because that's a big thing. And we're very affordable. We have a scholarship program. We never want finances to come in the way of somebody getting help. I don't care how much money you have. If you're not willing to do what we ask you to do, you're not coming to us. But if you have no money and your life is on the line and you say, "I will do what I want," come on. We'll help you. We'll help you.
It's amazing.
Because those are the people that I want to see, I want to see get well. But you have to put the work in. You have to put the work in. And we have a wellness program as well. Healthy eating and exercise. So we have a gym membership. It's not required that they go, but we offer them a gym membership. If they do take the gym membership, they have to go. And then we do healthy eating classes with them. They do their own cooking. I think it's twice a week. We just started that. We got a grant for that. Yeah.
Denise, as we start to wrap up, is there maybe anything that we didn't ask you or anything else you'd want to share with the audience?
Oh my goodness.
Can people come? Can they contact you all to do a tour?
Yes,
If there's
definitely.
families or other centers that are.
We love to have people. We love to have people come and see the place because people don't. I can talk all day about McCoy, but when you walk on the property, like we have, David Curlew is a good friend of mine. David came down. Charlie Daniels used to give us a signed fiddle every year, and he has the Journey Home project, and I love that because it's trying to get vets, back to where they want to be. So I got to be friends with David and Charlie and his wife Carolyn, and David came down one year to bring the fiddle, and I said, "You got to come see the place," and he cried when he went inside the gates. The tears just. He said, "You can feel." You can feel the spirit in here. He said, you can feel that this is a safe place. So I love for people to come. I would love for you to come and just embrace it because it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Well, I know Jeff and I, maybe we can drag
Yeah.
Mark down there.
No,
Brian
Come
O'Shea
on.
has been.
Brian
we owe
is one
Brian
of
a
my best
visit.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian is one of my best friends. Yeah. And then you mentioned Defining Wellness. Daniel Pfeiffer.
Absolutely. Shout out to Daniel.
Daniel is on our board.
Wow.
Daniel is he's out there and he's doing the work. His father used to be on our board. His father was he gave a huge donation for us to buy Mercy Lodge. We have another building behind where the women, and it's Mercy Lodge and it's a retreat center. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Well, thanks so much for all you're doing, and thanks for making the McCoy House come to life. It's definitely impacting a lot of women and a lot of people, and really appreciate you sharing your story on MasterMined. So,
Well, thank you. And one thing, I did not do it alone. Nobody does it alone. We have a board. We have volunteers. We have employees. So, I'm not the McCoy House.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you all for joining us again today. We'll drop all of Denise's information in the show notes and make sure that they can reach out to you for a tour or just to contact you and maybe pick your brain on how they could potentially implement some of the things that you're doing in their program. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Yeah. Well, Denise, thank you. And thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week on MasterMined.
That wraps up this episode of MasterMined. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, MasterMined is not just a podcast, it's a community. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and review us. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content that's relevant and relatable. Thanks again to our sponsor, Snapshot, a digital media marketing agency. And thank you for joining us on MasterMined, your behavioral health playbook.